Okay, so this show had to be some kind of dumb shit trying to ride the Evangelion wave in the mid-2000s. Wait, this came out in 2015. Okay, well then it had to be some kind of low-budget operation by a small studio that's just really desperate for money. Wait, this was made by Sunrise. Okay, well if that's the case, then this horny, just murder-fest, general clusterfuck of a show must have had a really bad writer. So let's see what else they've done. Wait, this guy went on to write Revue Starlight. What the fuck happened here? So Cross Ange is a completely baffling show, and I quite frankly have no idea how it even exists in the first place. It feels like I'm just having a fever dream or something, and I just imagined all this. I'll spend an episode being pretty serious, and you're like, oh, they're trying to tell a serious story here. And then the hard cut to 3 girls having sex with each other, because the writers are just horny, I guess. This happens like genuinely 15 times throughout the show. It's constant. I think the most intriguing part of the show is how it even exists in the first place. Like, Sunrise is a pretty well-off studio, and the show clearly has some kind of budget behind it between all the wacky 3D action and high-budget voice actresses they got. Also, it's 24 episodes long. For some reason, someone thought that this was enough of a good idea to just throw an absolute shitload of money at it. Because of that, I've come up with 2 main reasons for why this show might exist, and my first one is cocaine. So my first theory for why this show exists is that everyone at Sunrise just had a massive cocaine party one night. Well, in the cocaine-filled air, someone came up with an idea for this show. And since everyone was on crack, they thought it was a genius idea. They all started making it, and by the time they sobered up, they realized they'd already approved it, and it was too late. This explains why even the show's own episode previews call it garbage, and I'll get to that later. My second theory is government intervention. The Japanese government was involved in the making of Cross Ange. Why? I have no idea. Maybe they were actually doing something similar to Cross Ange in real life, and they made this show as an attempt to hide it. This isn't fair, because if they have real giant robots, then they should let me pilot one. Or maybe they just wanted to make their population dumber, so they made this shit. I mean, governments do dumb shit all the time. America tried to blow up the moon once, so I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, so now it's time to get into the actual plot of Cross Ange, and there's a lot to go over here. The show is about dragons, but it's also about mechs, and racism, and Jedi mind tricks, and murder, and gore, and sex, and really anything else they could shove into 25 episodes. This show changes plot constantly because it seems unable of holding a coherent story together for more than 3 episodes at a time before chucking it out the window. It starts out with everyone realizing the special Princess Ange can't use the kind of special mind magic that everybody else can, so they just send her to the Shadow Realm with a bunch of other people who also can't. They then decide to give her a giant death robot full of guns and missiles, right after they kicked her out of their society. I wonder how that one's gonna go. So then she just goes around and fights shit for a while, and also is not wearing clothes a bunch. And they all have sex with each other, because this show cannot go half an episode without someone not having clothes on, or having sex, or doing something stupid. Key points from this time include a random 1-episode arc on an island so they can introduce a side character who is incredibly unfunny. And somehow her maid manages to break on the island, and then she gets bought as a slave, because I don't know what this show's doing, and it's only like episode 4. It's also worth mentioning that for a little bit, Ange and one of the people whose only purpose in the plot is to have sex break out of the island and go home, where the one girl gets dono-walled by her own mom who had a child to replace her, and then Ange gets kidnapped and nearly gets hanged. So I think that was a pretty good escape. After this, the show decides it no longer wants to be about girls and robots fighting dragons and just does a complete fucking 180. Episode 11 of the show starts the actual plot and goes through like 4 different phases. It starts with dragon sex and ends with singing and massive robot nukes and something that feels straight out of symphogear. I honestly don't know what it was doing most of the time. It also starts doing some Evangelion shit where it's like, whoa, your robot can like move on its own and time travel and shit. Episode 11 goes, oh yeah, the side girl, who has been completely useless so far, she's actually a dragon. And then it completely leaves that plot point unexplained for like 6 episodes. And by the time it does explain, I don't really care anymore. So after all this shit happens, the guy who took over the kingdom after Ange and her family got kicked out decides, for some reason, why don't I just go kill Ange? So he drives his boat out there, decides he's gonna attack the Shadow Realm Island, and then he gets fucking nuked and killed by God in a mecha. God has a mecha in this show. Why does he need a mecha if he's God? I've got no fucking clue. but he has one, and he nukes people with it. So Ange's mecha sees this and goes, I'm not fucking touching that, and warps her into another dimension. After that, there's a few episodes of nothing but awful romantic teases, and then Ange gets picked up by dragons, where this show just goes entirely off the rails. Turns out dragons are actually people from a parallel Earth who modified their DNA to become dragons. I don't know who came up with that, or how they came up with that, or just who wrote this? Why? Turns out the dragon progenitor got kidnapped by God and is now being used as a power source for the people in Ange's world's magic. And the dragons that Ange and her people killed were just used to replenish said magic. I don't fucking understand this at all. Because, like, if the dragons were getting killed to feed the power source, why didn't they just stop sending dragons so they couldn't be killed? Is that too smart for this show? Why didn't they just do that? Following all those awful attacks that did nothing, they decided to launch an actually organized attack on the humans. And it swiftly fails, because it turns out when they attacked the Shadow Realm base earlier, it got a lot of people really mad at them. I can't imagine why. So then the Shadow Realm base commander goes insane, and all kinds of crazy shit happens, and Ange gets kidnapped by God, where she's promptly brainwashed. She then somehow manages to unbrainwash herself. She is promptly brainwashed again. So the first time, she feels like 50 times pain to any injury that occurs to her, which is like, you know, obviously pretty bad. But she breaks out of that, and God goes, okay, if you can break out of that first one, then how about this? And just makes her permanently horny. Is now a good time to remind you that this show was written by the same guy who just a few years later would write Revue fucking Starlight? Why is it like this? Why did they do this? After this, Ange unbrainwashes herself, and then immediately gets brainwashed for a third time, and then immediately unbrainwashes herself again before finally breaking out. There's some robot fighting, followed by the revelation that the God dude can actually control every human like he's playing NBA 2K or some shit. Where was that ability for the last 21 fucking episodes? We're deep in the show at this point, and they just pulled that out of their ass. Like, yeah, he can, like, control everyone. What sense does that make? They use it extensively for, like, one episode, and then immediately get rid of it again, which makes it one of the biggest ass pulls I've ever seen in my entire life. They also try to kill off both the maid and the guy from the island arc in this episode, except both of them somehow don't actually die. This guy tried to suicide bomb himself, and the other one drove a car off a huge fucking cliff, and they're both okay. Apparently, the one who drove the car off the cliff was saved by a frying pan. So clearly, Player Unknown was a huge fan of this show. They even acknowledge how dumb this is in the show's own episode preview, because even the creators think this shit is fucking stupid. Now's a good time to talk about the episode previews of the show, which are like meta and fourth wall breaking and constantly make fun of the show, calling it low budget, which I don't think it is, shitting on the director, and even having characters discuss their own death flags the episode before they die. Later on, they even get meta about the episode previews not being real episode previews, the same characters doing them every week, characters having to fill in for other characters who died. If they put as much effort into the actual plot as they did these episode previews, the show might not be completely incoherent. The next two episodes largely consist of robot fighting, and also God getting really angry that Ange had sex. Maybe it's because she isn't married yet? God continues his plot to try and destroy the world. How I mentioned he wants to destroy the world, yet he wants to destroy the world. And a bunch of character drama happens, but it's exclusively between all the annoying side characters that I never liked. The final episode involves God kidnapping Ange and taking her to another dimension. So the gang of annoying people who I don't care about has to break into the dimension, kill God in a sword fight, rescue Ange, and save the world. He's God! What? Why? A sword? Happy ending for everyone. Except for the humans in Ange's old society, because now they don't have magic, and their world is in ruins. Have fun! First off, what the fuck were they trying to do with this show? it changes direction so much. At first, I had like a coherent idea, and they ran with it for about 10 episodes before shit just completely hit the fan. The middle episodes are just like 9 different ideas smashed together over like 7 episodes, none of which really makes any sense. And then towards the end, they finally seem to figure out what they're trying to do again and get it back on track for the finish. The writing is just not good. Things seem really important, but then never get touched on or explained at all. Instead of explaining things, they do that classic anime thing of just having more nude people. Things seem important to the plot and then are just completely forgotten about, and then other random shit that is not important keeps getting brought up episode after episode and makes you want to beat your head into a wall. The characters are kinda eh. Main girl is fine, and the character development is honestly pretty good when it comes to her. Unfortunately, a lot of the side characters are either annoying, forgettable, or completely unimportant to everything. Like, who's this pink hair girl? She does nothing all show. Some people in the base feel like they should be important, like the commander, but she never does anything. And then people like Ange's sister keep getting brought up episode after episode, but there's no point in her being there. She's just really annoying. Again, the weirdest thing about the show is that it doesn't seem low budget. Like, it's 25 episodes, the voice acting cast is really good. It's full of tons of robot CGI that genuinely looks not bad. And all this money was blown on one of the worst ideas I've ever seen. I just can't fathom how this show actually came into existence to begin with. It just feels like everything in it was poorly planned and poorly thought out. At times it was executed decently, but often it just felt like it was running in circles, struggling to figure out what it wanted to do with itself. I think at the end of the day, the most important question when watching something like this is it entertaining? And it kind of is, honestly. It's dumb and nonsensical and really stupid. But, like, the robot fighting is cool, and I wanted to keep watching to see what happened next. I never really felt bored, which is more than I could say about a lot of shows. I think if they maybe thought this out more, they could have actually done something with this. The issue is that everything surrounding the core premise of this show is horrendous. Sometimes you get like an occasional good idea that shines through and makes you think, oh, it's not that bad. And then it immediately drags you down to earth with the 9th sex scene of the episode. Like, people had to write and script and air and animate all this shit. I feel bad. Should you watch it? Probably not. Am I glad I watched it? I mean, I'm getting this video out of it, so definitely worse things I could have been watching, like JoJo. 6.9 out of 10. Why was there so much sex?